Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning, members. Welcome to yet another IRE lesson. We are still dealing with paper one, and we already noted that some of the key topics we need to cover, especially in section C, are number one, conditions in Uganda before the coming of Islam. Here we look at the political, religious, and the economic aspects of the people of Uganda before the ushering in of Islam. Then we have to look at how Islam addressed the above aspect. I'm sure that we had already looked at that, and therefore, if we are to receive any question, come any paper, we are sure that we can at least deal well with the conditions or what was happening in Uganda and Uganda before the coming of Islam, that is prior to 1844. From there, we addressed the coming of Islam. We saw Islam coming in, led by Ahmed bin Ibrahim, who was a trader, accompanied by his friend Sinai bin Amin. You know their role towards the spread of Islam cannot be sidelined. Just after that, we looked at, before, by the way, there's a story I shared with you about these people coming, Ahmed bin Ibrahim, when coming to Uganda. He found when the people were calling the Kawaka their God. And by calling him God, for him, they saw it as an evil, and they approached him. They gathered the courage, approached him, told him, "You are not God, but rather there is a heavenly God also called Allah." Remember how he had to deal, and they had to deal with him. Kawaka asked them, "What is it that God can do? Your God can do that I cannot do." In the event that followed, you know what happened. He called for slaves, he killed one and left the other to go. And for him, he assumed that he had given one life and he had killed the other. Thereafter, we looked at the factors responsible for the spread of Islam in Uganda. And you all know that Islam could not have prospered without certain aids. Among the factors we looked at was the presence of the kings. For example, Suna, Mutesa, Kalema, among other, Kiwewa, among other kings. Then the role of the chiefs, local chiefs, and very many others. For example, Sudanese soldiers. Then we looked at the challenges that was ahead to the spread of Islam. I think it is even up to date. Islam still finds a number of challenges in its spread, as you may all know from Islam faces a number of challenges, as you all may be knowing. And it would be spreading very fast if it was not for those challenges. Then from there, we looked at the golden age of Islam, also called Mtesa's period. I'm very sure you can hardly miss out a question on such topics. If you are to pass, for example, many of you are now in lockdown, you need to sit down and settle, learn and revise these topics, because in section C, there are normally 4 questions from which you may pick out just one question. That means if you now sit down and settle down, you are good to do any final paper of senior 4. Why? Because we said all the 3 sections, A and B and C, there is normally 4 questions from which you may pick out either 1 or 2. Supposing you are picking 2 questions from section A, that is pre-Islamic Arabia, then you pick 1 question from section B, that is the Caliphate period, or 1 from section C called Islam in Uganda, or you may pick out one, one, two, and at the end of the day, you will be having the 4 questions that are required at senior at all level in paper 1. By now, I know a person who has been attending at least the last series of weeks. You are good to at least pick out a question when it comes to section C. From there, we looked at the reign of Mutesa I, and we refer to that as the golden age of Islam. Why it was called the golden age? Because of the achievements, positive achievements it registered towards the spread of Islam. There are very many positive contributions, as you all are aware. Those of you who have not yet copied the work, it was posted on in the video in the library. You can go and print out that work and use it for revision. So we looked at his role, positive contribution, and because of the positive contribution he registered, they account for his era to be referred to as the golden era in the history of Islam. From that, last week we looked at the political religious wars. We did mention that the political religious wars started in 1888, and by 1893 they were coming to an end. However, they were not so fruitful to the Muslims, much as they registered positive contribution, but they had a lot of negative contribution, including the loss of lives of the Muslims and making Muslims who are settled to become refugees in foreign areas. For example, many of the Muslims after the political religious wars, they were sent to different areas. For example, the land was divided according to religious line, and the Muslims were given Botambala, Busujo, and Bomba. However, later on, it was only Utambara that the Muslims retained. Other provinces were taken away by the colonial masters. Okay. Then within the political religious wars, we looked at the causes, we looked at the cause as well as the effects, and the reason behind the defeat of the Muslims. As you are reading, whenever you're reading political religious wars, please put emphasis on the 4 key areas. Number 1, the causes, meaning what brought about the political religious wars. Then 2, look at how it was organized, also called the cause. And then you look at the effects of the political religious war. And lastly, you need to cite out the reasons why the Muslims were defeated in these political religious wars. Of course, a series of reasons account for their defeat. One of the major reasons was the death of the then kings who supported Islam wholeheartedly. Yes. From there, we look at from the political religious wars. One of the effects we have seen was that the Muslims had to move to different areas, and most of them had to go to Bunyoro. Others went to Ankole. Others went to Toro. Others went to Busoga, among other areas. Of course, the major reason for their fright was because of their defeat and fear to be killed after their defeat in the political religious wars. So they had a reason for their movement. I remember last week I left a question behind. Why did the Muslims migrate to Kijungute, or the place Kijungute, we said is a place in Bunyoro where the Muslims settled after their defeat, and they based there The plan was to come back and attack their counterparts, that is the non-Muslims. However, they failed because of several factors, and at the end of the day, the Muslims were defeated. So we looked at their movement, the spread of Islam to the rest of Uganda, including Ankole, including Bunyoro, northern Uganda, particularly eastern Uganda, among other regions of Uganda. So today we are looking at one of the last topics of section C, and that is what we refer to as Muslim factions. Muslim factions can also be called the Muslim divisions. A faction can also be referred to as a division. Muslim factions or divisions. We are all aware that this time immemorial, the Muslims have been divided. They have been divided because of a number of reasons that we are going to see, and notable among the prominent factions. Muslim factionism in Uganda community means disunity and division among the Muslims. The major factions we are having in Buganda, we have had in Uganda, are one, Juma Zukuri sect or division. We're having another sect also called Juma Mpya or Uganda Muslim Community. And lastly, we can also look at NAM, or National Association for the Advancement of the Muslims in Uganda. The Muslim factions have come because of a number of reasons. They have come because of a number of reasons. One, we have noted that we have three major factions, although we have even other factions, the later factions or later divisions. These include the Spidika, these include the Tabligh movement. All these are sects that have come within the Muslim community, also called Sharaf Tabligh. All these have come because of a number of reasons, and these are what we're going to refer to as the causes of the Muslim factions. In other words, what are the causes of the Muslim divisions in Uganda? I'm sure I'm dealing with a large number of Muslims here. When you look at your homes and your surroundings, you are going to find out that Muslims are divided because of a number of reasons, which I think you would mention. However, because we cannot interface and share the divisions, I'm going to be giving out the reasons why we believe that the Muslims are divided. Of course, you may add on these factors I'm going to give. I'm not going to give a conclusive and give inconclusive facts, but I know you can also add on these factors. So as you're reading and making your research, you may add on what I'm going to be giving as the causes for the divisions among the Muslims in Uganda. Number one is what we refer to as leadership struggle. I've just realized that when you look at the people who are standing for political positions, especially here in Uganda and Kampala, I've seen a number of Muslims rushing in to go and stand for political power. So that is a good gesture that they love politics. However, leadership struggle among the Muslims. Each group struggles to win Muslim leadership. We all know today that Muslims are in a bit of struggling for political power and the Muslim leadership power. When we have the old Kampala sect, we even have the Chibuli sect all struggling to lead the Muslims. So one of the reasons why we have divisions among the Muslims of Uganda is because of leadership struggle among the Muslims. Each group needs to be a lead of the Muslims. Then number two, which was the major factor for the divisions in the early days. For example, I'm going to look at Juma sect, the Kuri sect, and Juma and Pia sect, is the difference in the interpretation of the Quran. But majorly the Quran. Difference in the interpretation of the Quran. How is this a factor to that it causes Muslim divisions? It is a factor. Why? Because different people read and interpret the Quran differently. For instance, you are going to find today Muslims who are fighting over reduction of the trouser, growing of the beards, among others. Whereas other people say it is okay not for one to grow the beard. Others say if you don't grow the beard, you don't even sought to be a Muslim. So this difference in the interpretation of the Quran has led to the birth of different divisions. For example, Juma and Zukoli sect. How did this come about? In the early days before, in the early 1920s, the Muslims would pray Juma prayer, and after Juma prayer, they would also pray Zuhuri prayer. Why to them? They said one Zuhuri prayer is a compulsory prayer, and therefore you can and Juma prayer is an optional prayer. To these Muslims, lay Muslims of that time, they said, how can I pray an optional prayer and I leave out a compulsory prayer which is called the Zuhuri prayer? They said, no, to be on the safer side, let's pray Juma. Then after praying the Juma prayer, we also pray Zuhuri prayer. These people came to be known as the Juma and the Zuhuri sect for division among the Muslims. They went ahead and consulted very many sheikhs, including those of Zanzibar, and others even went as far as Mecca. To them, according to one of the tradition of the Prophet, it was said that for one of the Juma to be valid, there must be at least 40 old men. But even up to date, look at your mosques in our villages. How many of the mosques can have a Juma with 40 old men? These were very few. And even up to date, they are very few. But if today they are very few, think about 80 years back. Do you think these people could raise the number of all the people in the mosque to be 40? The answer is no. So these old people of the time said, because for one Muslim Juma to be valid, there must be 40 only men. Therefore, in our mosque, we are having very few members. We cannot even have 30 people in a mosque. Therefore, because we need to have 40, therefore we have to pray Juma and after praise the Lord. These people divided and went at Kawempe, where we have Kawempe Muslim today, bought land and they established a division called the Juma Zukuri sect. It stands even up to present. Even those of you who have been at Kawempe, after Juma, some people also stand up to pray Zuhuri prayer. So this became the Muslim faction called the Juma and Zuhuri sect. Zuhuri, they would have used the Zuhuri, but the only people of that time where we have H, they would pronounce as Zuhuri, not the Zuhuri prayer. That is why they refer to them as the Juma and the Zuhuri sect. Therefore, the difference in the interpretation of the Quran and the tradition has also led to the Muslim division among the Muslims of Uganda. Then, number 3 is inadequate education. Both secular and religious. Because these people are inadequate education, both secular and religious knowledge, also has caused a lot of divisions among the Muslims. You bear me witness, people who are uneducated are easily manipulated, can easily be led into division and fighting. A good example is when we have, for example, riots in town. You can hardly, right, a good example is when we have the riots in town. You can hardly see professionals going into riot. It is very difficult to find a person, a medical practitioner, a lawyer, and other professionals running into riots. You are going to find very many people who are going into strikes are uneducated people. So inadequate education, both secular and religious, have contributed towards the formation of the Muslim factions in Uganda. That is why when they tell you, for example, how the Tabligh had to begin, many of the preachers of the time would preach to the Muslims that there is no need for a non-Muslim leader to lead you. Therefore, you need to go into rebel activity. That is why you are going to see they ended up running into LD, Lord Resist LDA, that was established in the western region areas of Kasese, among other. So, inadequate education, both secular and religious, has contributed towards the inner divisions among the Muslims in Uganda today. Then another factor is the political interference. Political, you can also call it government interference in the Muslim affairs. Government interference in the Muslim affairs, for example, in the early days, Sir Kagwa supported Tai Magato against Imbogo, and this ended up in bringing in a number of divisions. Then, still up to date, can raise a good example if, for example, the government of Uganda was not in support of the Mufti Mubaji. I am not certain that he would be the Muslim leader present, because why is even up? He has to be guarded and protected in each and every affair, wherever he's going, has to be protected. If a Muslim leader, why do you need such a protection? And what you are doing, you are doing it for the cause of the Muslims. So, because of this political interference, some Muslims who are not in favor of the reigning leader saying, no, let us put up our own division. That is why you are going to see, I'm going to put a supreme mufti after the mufti. So, that brings up what we call Muslim divisions in Uganda. So, the political government interference right from the early days has contributed towards the political towards the divisions of the Muslims. When Obote came, he formulated what we refer to as the NAM. And the NAM supporters who were not in support of Obote had to divide, and he could not go with the NAM leaders. When Idi Amin came in 1971, he also had to formulate his Ghana Muslim Supreme Council, for which he had to take it as his own property. Whatever he wanted was what was done. Therefore, to the more people who are not in support of Amin, they would not support the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council. And at the end of the day, it brought in even more quarrels and division among the Muslims. Then another one, lack of universally accepted leader. Accepted leader among the Muslims. The Muslims from around the 1920s have not had one accepted leader. Why? Because of a number of reasons. Notable among the reasons is the political interference and the political and leadership struggle, because of one, lack of accepted leader among the Muslims. From time immemorial, the Muslims don't have. Why? Because of very many reasons. One of the reasons is tribal differences. We can also call it a reason, but major reason why you don't have an accepted leader is that different tribes do not accept to have different tribes do not accept to have one leader. For example, if the Muslim leader is selected among the Basoga, the Baganda will say the Basoga cannot lead us. If he's chosen among the Baganda, other tribes will also game up not to support. Therefore, this has contributed and brought in a number of divergences and divisions among the Muslims. Here, lack of an accepted leader among the Muslims. We can also note that whoever comes in just after, during Amin's time, Muslims tried a bit to be united because for him, he could direct on whatever he would do. And if you refused to follow his directive, you had to be punished there and then. Therefore, when he died, people had to resort back to go back to their own differences. That is when we saw the breaking up of Speedy Cup and the Tabligh sect. Then tribal differences, we have mentioned it, especially among the Baganda. The Baganda will always want to lead. And once the leader that comes out is not a Muganda, there would be quarrels and what will come out without into the faction. Provided the leader is not a Muganda, the Baganda will have to gang up and set up their leader. And that is why you see there will be people having the supreme among other reasons. Then another factor is the struggle for personal gains. Most of the Muslims come in and love personal gains. That is why we are seeing most of the Muslims falling into problems because of personal gain. One of the reasons I can cite for accumulation of a lot of gain is because of polygamous marriages, whereby most of the Muslim leaders marry up to even 4 wives. All these will need necessities, and they will need necessities at home, which you cannot easily be obtained. And at the end of the day, whenever they come in, they will grab and take and sell off almost all the Muslim land to get the personal gains, and on getting the personal gain, others cannot accept that kind of scenario. And in so doing, they'll have to separate from these people. So, struggle for personal gain. This has made many Muslims support one Muslim leader against the other. all people will come in and support where they can gain. Where they can't gain, they will not support that kind of leader. And at the end of that day, it has led to the divisions among the Muslims. Then the role played by outside Muslim countries. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. The role played by outside foreign countries. For example, Saudi Arabia has always supported one sector against the other. For example, when Libya came out to help the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council putting up the mosque, then the Saudi people came up to help the Supreme side. So, provided there are those foreign countries, for example, Saudi Arabia, for example, Libya, for example, Egypt, and other Kuwait and other Muslim countries coming to support a sect, there will always be division because these people will be gaining in these sects. Everybody will be gaining in one, where the country that is supporting him. And at the end of the day, this has brought about Muslim struggles for power, and the Muslim struggle for power has brought in the faction and division among the Muslims. Then conservativeness of some Muslims, hesitation to change. Conservativeness of many Muslims, especially those people who have had, can I call it inadequate, have had, I don't want to use the word little, but I've just learned from, which word can I use here? People, inadequate. Can you use inadequate? But especially these people don't want to change. Many of the people, especially the people of Uganda, don't want to change, even when they know that whatever they are doing is not right. They always hesitate and move on. Or conservativeness of some Muslims who don't want to change and follow the truth, even after being told he or she this has divided the Muslims so much. For example, there are those people who are told prayer, everybody must pray. For example, everybody must pray, and this prayer should always be now at home. But for them, they don't want. They say a Muslim man's prayer is accepted when he goes to the mosque, and they will always want to follow that, even when they know that that should not be done at a particular time. Why? Because it is estimated that even during the Prophet's time, they were put into a social boycott between 617 to 620, and these people could not live out to go to other areas. So when they tell you, please start home, pray from home, you don't have to say hesitate. But there are those people who are hesitant to change. These people, even when they are told that this is what they are told, they will not accept that. At the end of the day, this has also caused and has contributed towards the Muslim divisions of Uganda. Then the role played by non-Muslims who sponsor, they call them Orientalists. Orientals. These are non-Muslims who have supported their fellow. They sometimes even support other Muslims to fight against the Muslim. And these have went ahead to support non-Muslims to study Islam, to study Arabic, and use that knowledge to fight the Muslim. You're going to find these Orientalists, sometimes they're going to look at verses and start translating them the way they do believe. For example, there was people who at one time were arguing that there are some beings which are superior than God, which know, I think it's in Surah Baqarah, there are creatures who know what even God does not know. That at one time when God was preparing to bring Adam, angels told him, please don't bring a human being onto the earth crust. Why? Because it's going to go and spoil whatever you have put on earth. While for us angels here, we don't do anything contrary to what you say. Then it is said that Allah told them, just leave me, I know what you don't know. So whenever these things are going astray on this earth, there was a leader to say, these people knew what God did not know, because now we see man is doing FB, is killing one another, man is spoiling the nature, man is doing. So to them, they use that verse and say, these angels knew even better than what Allah knew. So those people, Orientalists, have contributed towards the division of the Muslim, because for them they are willing to only support one side when they are gaining. And whenever that group is going beside them, they don't follow that. And at the end of that day, these have caused a lot of problems to the Muslims and have ended up bringing in factions among the Muslims. Then another factor, there are other factors that have contributed towards the Muslim division. When you look out and research, you'll find that there are very many other reasons as to why the Muslims are divided in Uganda. So those are 10. You may look out for more points as to why we think the Muslims are divided in Uganda. So we have said the Muslim factions are the divisions that have happened since 1920s among the Muslims. We have looked at the 3 or 5 major factions. We have looked at one, Juma Zukuri, then Juma Mpya, also called Uganda Muslim Community, that has its headquarters at Kibuli. Then Juma Zukuri has the headquarters at Kawempe. Then we have talked about Spidika. We have talked about Tabrik, which has headquarters at Nakasero, among other divisions. Then we have said that there are a number of factors that account for these divisions, and these factors are causes are one, leadership struggle among the Muslims, difference in the interpretation of the Quran and the Hadith. That is where we say you're going to find someone struggling, saying you must reduce your trouser. You ask him, where do you get that in verse in the Quran? Or where do you get it among the tradition? He's going to tell you, it's going to tell you, the Quran says you must reduce your trouser. You ask him, did the Prophet ever put on a trouser? Then he's going to start stumbling on. So then there is a good example they have brought here of Maulidi. People are going to say, Maulid is good, or Milad or celebrating the birth of the Prophet. But other people will come in and say, but the Prophet never celebrated his birth. Therefore, when you do it, you are doing what they call innovation or BDR. That the Spidika people came to fight innovations. So people have interpreted the Quran differently, and that has led to the Muslim division among the Muslims, inadequate education, people who get little education, who get very small portions of education are easily led into trouble. And they are always quarrelsome. They just read, they don't internalize, and we always go thinking that they even know more. Then the political stroke government interference right from the time of Obote, President Idi Amin, but the president all have interfered in the Muslim affairs. Then we have looked at lack of general accepted leader among the Muslims, tribal differences, struggle for power, especially Uganda versus other tribes, role played by foreign countries, people who don't want to change even when they know that whatever they are doing is wrong, and then the role played by non-Muslims who have come in to support Muslims, even other non-Muslims, to fight Islam within. Okay, then next we are going to look at the effects of the factions among the Muslims. We have looked at the causes, then next we look at it, effects of the Muslim division. What do you think have come out of these Muslim divisions in Uganda? So today is a Friday. Is it 13th?
Yes.
It's Friday 13th. Don't miss out on Juma. If you can, pray from your home. Effects, and I think we have just entered the new Islamic year. Which is it 1443?
Yes.
Today. So, okay. It's around the 3rd of Muharram. I don't think, I'm not very sure. 3rd of Muharram is saying, or 3rd January. Effects, or we can call it importance, that equates it to positive and negative results. Can also call them consequences. Consequences, like would it be consequence of consequences, impact among other, landmark, turning point. We can all these may refer to effects of the Muslim divisions. What are the effects of the Muslim division? These are very many. They are always positive as well as negative contributions of the Muslim divisions. Just a minute. Okay, among the consequences of the Muslim factions, we have positive as well as negative consequences. Number one, positively, they have resulted in two thorough research by the Muslims about their religion for better interpretation of the Quran. So, because of one of the causes we said was difference in the interpretation, this has called for thorough research. So, it has resulted into research on the Muslim affairs. So one effect was it that Muslims have now come out to research on different topics, especially travels, especially prayer, especially. So Muslims have now come out in big numbers to research on the Muslim-related affairs. For example, he said after Juma became a contention, different people had to go even up to Zanzibar to look for the Sultan and ask him the issue. Other people went as far as Mecca to ask on the same issue. Therefore, Muslims have now researched onto the affairs of the Muslims and they can now talk with authority. And therefore, the Muslims have learned their religion for better. They can now better interpret and better interpret of the Quran and Hadith. So one of the effects now, it has resulted in two thorough research onto the Muslim affairs, and therefore Muslims have not just walked out barefooted, but they have at least researched on their religion. One of the reasons that are bringing in is inadequate education. People just learn a little and go on, and others have not even went to school. These people are very dangerous, and they don't know when to do or what and okay. So number two, more mosques have been constructed in Uganda, so it has led to construction of more mosques. For example, we have the Tabligh sect. When it came up, it was fighting against the old sheikhs. To them, whatever the old sheikhs were doing was not okay. Remember, at that time, many of them would preach, would make what we call maulidi, would sing as they are taking somebody to be buried. They carry out what they call tarakains and others. To the Tabriks, this was not accepted. And they could not go to these mosques where the old sheikhs were. I remember in the early 90s, when Eid was to be prayed, there had to be fightings between the Tabriks who were just coming up. They could not allow the old sheikhs to lead them in prayer. And whenever the old sheikhs were leading, the Tabligh had to attack the people who were praying. They threw stones onto them. And the reverse was also true. And in whatever Eid, they had to fight and struggle for the mosque. And they fought. What resulted? Different people said we cannot we cannot stay in harmony with these people. They ended up constructing their different mosques. That is why you're going to find in a single town, a small town of about 100 Muslims, you're going to find about 3 or 4 mosques. Why? Don't you think they can go into one mosque? No, but they don't subscribe to the same teaching. And that in the end, they have resulted into the positive contribution of putting up very many mosques. In one division alone, you may find about 5. I know of towns where you have there is a mosque which is facing the other, where one is for the Tabriks and others is for other Muslims. I don't know if for the Tabriks are not, but largely it were the Tabriks who spearheaded the act of construction of very many other mosques. So number 3 is here we can give examples of mosques like Chibuli, which was set up by Muslim community, Kawempe, which was set up by Juma, and the Sukoni. It has resulted in two more spread of Islam by the rival groups. For example, the Tabriks, they have went ahead to teach Muslims even door to door. And other sects have also tried to do so. So in so doing, they have resulted into the more spread of Islam to the people, which is a positive contribution. Then number 4, there has been more purification of Islam, led to more purification led to more purification of Islam. For example, the Tabriks came in, their role was majorly to fight innovation. For example, Maulid. And I remember those days when they found you in a Maulidi, they had to put down the kidal of the time because they were not tents. They would use it, what they referred to as the chidala. They had to put it they could put it down. We could go and pour all the food that was prepared, and they would fight you. And another way of purification, they tried to inform Muslims that they should pray from the mosques. And I remember some of those days, whenever you could not pray from the mosque, whenever even you died or you lost one of the relatives, these tablets will not come to help you to bury out. And at the end of the day, very many people would now go to the mosque to pray. They started the idea of Muslim veiling. Most of those days, most of the Muslim ladies would not veil, but the Tabligh started teaching about this, and very many people started covering, which was an indicator that they hoped in the purification of Islam. Shortening of the trousers, it was also essential. Why? Because when you're going to pray, you don't need to move to prayer when your trousers been touching the ground and carrying all the dirt. So they have helped in some way or the other in the purification of Islam, especially among the Tabligh and Sarafu who have went ahead. You have seen they have gone ahead to challenge the Orientalists, and they have challenged the so-called Ibalokole in the Muslim affairs. That is why you find them reading the Bible and the Quran. So they have helped in the purification of Islam in one way or the other. The faction resulted into formation of Muslim leadership in Uganda. For example, conflicts of the NAM led to the establishment of the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council. So factions resulted into formation of leadership in Uganda, helped in the formation of leadership in Uganda. Why? Because when President Obote formed the NAM, after his demise, Amin had to put up another leadership of the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council. So they have led to the formation of leadership among the Muslims of Uganda. However, it has had a negative contribution. So positively, we have that we may add on, because I know there are very many others that have led to establishment of schools. It has led to gaining of foreign aid. It has helped in it has given chances to the AOK. So it has brought in a number of positive contributions we shall have to add on. However, there are also some negative contributions. Just a minute. So that was positively. So negatively. Islam as a religion has been affected by politicians who have sided with certain groups of Muslims. So it has brought in a lot of interference in the Muslim affairs, led to increased interference among the Muslims affairs. So these sects have increased their interference in the Muslim affair. Why? When there is a sect fighting against the other, it calls for help from certain politicians. And by bringing in these politicians to solve the Muslim affairs, they are even bringing in more interference in the Muslim affairs. So negatively, it has led to increased interference among the Muslim affairs, especially by the politicians who are invited to come in and help in their wars. Then disunity has tarnished the image of Islam in Uganda. It has tarnished the Muslim name. Why? Because they are always fighting each other. Tabrik, Muslim fighting against Muslim. I told you of one experience I witnessed when they were in a Eid prayer and they had to fight each other, stone the people who were in prayer. At the end of that day, it has tarnished the Muslim image, especially to the people who are watching. They now label the Muslim to be rebels. Why? Because they are fighting each and every day. They are fighting each other and they are fighting even other people. So basically, the five above, here are the effects. Some of them positively resulted into increased in research, led to construction of more mosques, resulted into more spread of Islam, led to purification of Islam, helped in the formation of leadership, led to formation of different schools among others. So we are looking at negatively late interference, increased interference among the Muslims, and it has tarnished the image of the Muslims. Let me put up more negatively. It has retarded. This is number 3. It has retarded the spread of Islam in Uganda. Why? You think it has related to the retardation? Since most of the time is used in fighting, they have not given they have not given a lot of time to the spread of Islam, but rather this has led to low spread of Islam. That is why I say it has retarded the spread of Islam in the country. So that is negatively. Most of the time, which would have been used, resulted to spreading Islam, has been resulted into fighting one another. Shibuli sect fighting or the Kampala sect, and in so doing, this has negatively contributed towards the spread of Islam in Uganda. Then another factor, it has given chance to the politicians that one have talked about it. It has led to increased interference in the Muslim affairs. Some wrangles have resulted into serious fighting. Wrangles. Some wrangles have resulted into serious fightings, which have led to killing of different Muslims and killing of even other people. For example, when the Tabriks had just come up, they were even labeled about police. Why? Because they attacked the police and they attacked their fellow Muslims, killed very many of them. I gave you an example of fighting on Eid, and not only on Eid, but even whenever they attack the Muslims who are carrying out Maulid, don't think that these people just fold the hands, they would also fight back. And which wrangles then resulted to serious killings of very many people, and others ended up in the prison. Just hold on. Then the Muslim factions have created a shame towards the Islamic religion and Muslims in Uganda by creating a bad image. We have talked about tarnishing the Muslim image. They have always retarded spread, okay, led to loss of lives. We have talked about that. Then the factions have always increased hatred among the Muslims themselves. So it has also led to increased hatred among the Muslims. So the factions, one of the other effects is that they have increased hatred among the Muslims themselves, for example, among the Tabriks and other Muslims. So those are the effects of the Muslim faction, positive and negative contribution of the Muslim divisions. So after looking at what has brought the divisions, we have looked at the effects of the division, then we are going to now start looking at the actual divisions. The first one we said we are going to look at the Juma Zukuri sect. Juma and Zukuri sect. Actions. Juma Zukuri faction. We say the Zukuri is the only saying of Zuhuri. So among, we say we are looking at the faction. We said among the factions we have Juma Zukuri sect, we have Jumampia sect, we have the Stedika, we have Tabrik, among others. We have already looked at the causes and effects, so we are looking at the actual sects. Juma Zukuri faction. This group was started in 1946 after the Chiburi group dropping the observation of prayer alongside the Juma prayer. We said, how did this come about? We noted that at that time, we said most of the people knew that Juma is an optional prayer, whereas Zuhuri was a compulsory prayer. So the people of that time said, to you, what do you think would come first? Would you go in for an option and leave out a compulsory? Many of them said, no. What should we do then? They said, we should pray. To be on a safer side, let's pray Juma and as well pray Zohori prayer. This came to be known as the Juma Zohori sect and established their headquarters at Kawempe, where we have Kawempe Muslim today. However, after consultation with different people, there are others who went to Zanzibar and others went to Mecca. On finding out, they said, no, we don't need to pray. I'm going to give the advance why they said they must pray Juma and Zuhur. And what in the event that followed, the others who said, no, we cannot pray Juma and Zuhur, they later came to be known as Juma, also called Uganda Muslim Community. These established headquarters at Chibuli, where we have Chibuli Hospital. For these people said, no, we cannot pray Juma, and it's not necessary to pray Juma and then pray Zuhur. They came to be known as the Uganda Muslim Community. However, we said, these people said we have to pray Juma because it is optional, and later we pray the Zuhuri, which is compulsory. They approach different people, as you are going to note. So it began in 1947. 1947, we said Juma Zukuri group was formerly part of Chibuli group that believed in the observance of Zuhuri and Juma prayer on Friday. It was started by Sheikh Abdurrahman Mivule. So the founder is Sheikh Abdurrahman Mivule. Sheikh Abdurrahman. Started by Sheikh Abdurrahman Mivule. That was in 1947, together with other prominent sheikhs. It established its headquarters at Kawempe in Chadondo. This establishment came as a result of the fact that since 1920, Uganda Muslims were performing both Juma and Zuhuri prayers. As time went on, some sheikhs like Abdurrahman Mayanja started opposing the practice, which generated a lot of contention because they said when you pray that too, you are carrying out what they call innovation, also called bid'ah, which is not allowed in Islam. This generated a hot debate between his supporters and the non-supporters, and the community got divided into two camps. The Kawak of the time tried to solve the problems by calling a meeting between the two sides, but it never yielded any fruit. Also, the British colonials got concerned and invited some sheikhs from Tanzania, but all in vain. At the end of that day, around 1947, the problem was widening. They also consulted Mecca, but they did not get a conclusive answer because the group pronounced okay. We said Kabakachua tried to resolve, but with no fruits gained. The answers given, they went to Mecca, but the answers that were given were also not conclusive. For the sake of peace and keeping the Muslim community united, Prince Badu Kakungu, together with the leadership at Chivuli Mosque, resolved to drop Juma Zuhuri on Friday. This ended up putting up their headquarters at Kawempe and at Chibuli, and they became the Juma Mpya sect. Due to their continued observance of both prayers on Friday, they became known as Juma and Zuhuri. The Waganda pronounced Zuhuri as Zuhuri. This group was not as strong as the Uganda Muslim community. However, apart from Sheikh Mavule, other leading sheikhs that belonged to the organization were Sheikh Asuja, Salim Sebyala, Yunusu, Bata Ziba, and Katambala. Juma and Sambu. The most learned sheikhs of this group was Basuja and was confirmed as Sheikh by Sheikh Swaibu Makula. Today, there is a significant decline in the number of people who observe both prayers, that is Juma and Zukur. When you look around, very many people do not subscribe to this sect of Juma and Zukur. Why? Most of them just pray on the Juma, and on Friday they don't pray Zuhur. So most of the people in Uganda subscribe to the Uganda Muslim community of not praying Juma and Zuhur. Like any other Muslim organization, Juma Zuhur has suffered a heavy blow when Uganda Muslim Supreme Council was established, as some of its prominent personalities occupied prominent positions in the council. However, the Juman school has contributed to the development of Islam in very many ways. Number one, they established a big mosque on the 5 acre of land at Kawempe, and from there, this acted as its headquarters. And later on, there came Kawempe Muslim Secondary School, which has also fairly contributed to the development of not only Islam but it has educated most of the Muslim scholars of that day. So the Juman Zukuri has had a number of contributions. Notable among them, they have established a very big mosque at Kawempe to which Muslims go and pray. Then another significant contribution in the field of education has seen Kawempe Muslim Secondary School standing on that 5 acre land that was bought by the Juma and Zukuri sect. So it has also contributed to the development of education when we established not only a mosque but also a school which has contributed towards the development and skilling of the Muslims, both in secular as well as religious education. So the organization established an Islamic seminary that has done a lot in education. The young ones about that has educated the young ones about their education. Then the Mazukuri joined other Muslim organizations to form the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council in 1972, hence contributed to the development of Islam. When Idi Amin came in, remember he was fighting against the division, so he got some of the leaders of the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council from from the demands of Holy sect. Therefore, they have contributed towards the development of Islam in Uganda. It has for many years organized Mauledis on which a number of more people converting to Islam is. So they have continued with the old practices, for example, Maulidi, from which they have organized, and very many people come in, enjoy as they remember the birth of the Prophet, and it has seen a number of people converting to Islam. So then it has secured scholarship for Muslim students to further their education. For example, Sheikh Hussein Rajab Kapoza was sponsored to go and study from Pakistan. So it has also looked out for aid for Muslim people to go and further their education, which has also boosted on the development of Islam. Then Juman, the Kori group, has done a lot of fighting against acts of shirk, such as divination, magic, evil sacrifice. So they have preached Islam, and very many people have done away with what is not accepted by Islam. Then it has joined other Muslim organizations to protect the rights of the Muslim in their country. For example, as regards the dressing, as regards who should be slaughtered, the Muslim animals, and what to drink. So they have joined hands with other Muslim groups to fight for the Muslim rights. For example, the dressing code, for example, who should slaughter the animals the Muslims are going to take, among other. So lastly is a revision question which you should use um, in your free time. Revision question. Revision question. Let me just give you a revision question, then we shall call it the end of the lesson. Revision question. We want to give number one. Explain the causes and effects of the Muslims. Explain the causes and effects of the Muslim factions in Uganda. Then number two, write short notes So, write short notes about the following. Number one, the Juma Zukuri sect, and two, the Uganda Muslim community. So, in your book or where you are noting, please try out these revision questions and make sure you can attempt. Thank you very much for your time. I wish you a nice Juma and weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.